Today from the global lane, a massive extended military exercise in the Indo-Pacific, preparing for war with China.
When our adversaries see how easily we bring together all these nations, this many folks, they should see that we can quickly transmit that into combat if necessary.
Allegations that Obama masterminded the Russia hoax. The DOJ investigates possible criminality.
If people are violating the Constitution and seeking to undermine a lawfully elected president, it's ugly, it's sad, but it has to be done to set the precedent. You may not do this, but if you do, we're going to find you and we're going to hold you accountable.
Another lawsuit against Trump administration policy lands in federal district court, this time for removing children from the COVID vaccination schedule. Is it about protecting children's health or money?
I think it's actually about money.
And the disappearing dream of bringing unity and security to Syria. And it's all right here on the global lane. Remaining vigilant and prepared for war. The largest bilateral military exercise ever conducted between the United States and Australia, Operation Talisman Saber, is now underway down under. The goal of the 35,000 participants from 19 nations is to uphold a free and open Indo-Pacific. Some observers view the exercise as a response to the Chinese naval buildup and aggression in the South China Sea. Well, joining us to share some insights on the China military threat and allied preparedness to counter it is William Dunn, a retired Marine colonel, military analyst, and the president of Strategic Resilience Group. Colonel Dunn, tell us about Operation Talisman Saber. Would an exercise on this scale occur if China weren't a threat in the Indo-Pacific region?
Well, hey, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you bringing me on today. And yeah, Talisman Saber is a great exercise. It's the largest one, 35,000, 19 nations, as you mentioned. And really what this does, and I want everyone to kind of sort of back down a little. So, we're not doing this to prepare just for war, right? We're doing this to prepare for deterrence, to prepare for peace, as well as to prepare for operating with our other teammates, our allies, in a multi-nation operation/exercise. We do these exercises routinely, not on this scale. And the reason why we do them is simply to bring all of these forces together so that we learn and we train and we operate just like we are if we go to war. It should be seen more as in my mind, right, I'm hopeful, as a precursor to peace, because when our adversaries see how easily we bring together all these nations, this many folks, and we operate in a extended exercise, they should see that we could quickly transmit that into combat if necessary.
Well, we see Norway, Netherlands, Thailand, Singapore, and India have joined the exercise this year, especially India's participation. What statement does that make?
That's an interesting statement. Ideally, it's telling the world is that India is ready to become a worldwide player to support a free world. And so I think it's a good statement for them. I don't know personally what their level of participation is. And what I will throw out, sometimes you'll have a nation that will put in, of the 35,000, maybe they'll put in 5,000 or 1,000. Sometimes they'll put in a very few number of people. That is not to be looked down upon. That is a great thing, because just sending liaison individuals to support us is a great building block for future teamwork and obviously future support.
Bill, how strong is this military alliance? To what extent could the U.S. and Australia count on these nations to join in militarily in the event of war with China over, say, Taiwan?
We know our friends in the UK will be there wherever we go. I'm confident of that. What every nation, in my mind, will look at is what is required for their vital interest. There are some that will definitely come with us. I wouldn't put a guarantee that everybody would come. I would like to think they would, but, you never know. We've done missions, if you will, where some of our great allies have not given us overflight. So we've had to fly around their countries because they don't want to be seen as supporting a mission, specifically in the Middle East, a mission of the U.S. against a Middle Eastern partner. So Ideally what this does, it strengthens our relationship when we're talking military to military personnel. Very often at our level, at the, general officer level, at the colonel level, or at the staff NCO level, the team and the people we're working with would support each other to death, if you will. We could rely on them. But the country and the civilian leadership of their country is going to depend who's actually going to come to fight when the bullets start flying.
And half a world away in Istanbul, Iran is holding talks with the British, French, and Germans. They're still insisting they'll rebuild their nuclear facilities. How likely would you say it is that the U.S. and Israel may have to bomb them again? Are we looking at peace on the verge of breaking out in the Middle East, or is a regional war coming?
If Iran pursues a nuclear weapon, again, I fully expect additional strikes. Period. And we as American citizens should demand that of our president and our military. We should demand that. Not for Israel's sake, if you will, right? We should demand that for the protection of our families, our children, and the future generations of America. All Americans should demand and agree that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon because they promised to destroy Israel and the United States. So if that happens and they decide to do it again, I fully expect additional strikes. We, from everything I've seen, prevented regime change or helped prevent regime change because Israel, I think, had a plan for that. And President Trump, at least open source, has said that he wanted that not to happen. I agree with that. Regime change in a place like Iran could cause a humanitarian disaster for 40 million people. It could be terrible. And we're not ready, and we should not be ready or want to go in and fix that. Stability in the region, temporary at best.
Okay, Colonel William Dunn, thank you for sharing your insights today. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and you have a wonderful day.
Treasonous conspiracy unveiled or political retribution. The U.S. Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has released documents detailing what she alleges is a plot by Obama administration officials to manufacture intelligence in order to undermine Donald Trump's election victory in 2016. This week, Trump suggested that former President Barack Obama should possibly go to jail. Additionally, House Speaker Mike Johnson told our reporter David Brody that he's willing to subpoena Obama to testify. What will these new revelations mean for the country in the coming months? How should Christians respond? Well, joining us is Bishop E.W. Jackson, president of Stand America. Bishop Jackson, it's a pleasure talking with you today. So, former President Obama may face possible House subpoena. President Trump suggests if the former president's found guilty, he should go to jail. So, is this Trump political payback, or is he only trying to bring accountability to those who may have worked to undermine the will of American voters in 2016?
Well, thanks for having me. Look, this is not political payback. This is critical. I hear a lot of people say, why are we looking back? Why are we going back, rehashing the past? Because we are a constitutional republic and we don't work except by the rule of law. And I don't care who it is. I don't care whether it's Republican, Democrat, Independent. If people are violating the Constitution and seeking to undermine a lawfully elected president, those people have got to be held accountable. It's ugly, it's sad, but it has to be done to set the precedent. You may not do this, and if you do, we're going to find you and we're going to hold you accountable.
Bishop Jackson, I've seen some of the documents. They look pretty compelling. It's obvious there was a shift from intelligence community assessments that said the Russians did not interfere in the election to the opposite view after a cabinet meeting with Obama at the White House on December 9th, 2016. And Gabbard writes in her report that, quote, that same day, deep state officials in the IC began leaking blatantly false intelligence to the Washington Post. So what do you think about this?
Well, I think, first of all, this goes all the way to the White House. The fish rots, as they say, from the head down. And what this suggests to me is that they've made up their minds. As I always say, it is not about America. It is not about serving the people. It is about power. And they've thought, Donald Trump's taking it, and we're going to do whatever we need to do to stop him. And that means manufacturing lies. We'll do that. And so, again, these folks have no respect for the American people or the Constitution, and they've got to be held accountable. And I'm glad that's being done.
Gabbard has sent this evidence to the DOJ for investigation. What would it mean for race relations if the country's first black president is targeted and it leads to arrest and indictment?
Well, as you know, my organization is committed to deracializing America, getting us to a point where it doesn't matter one whit the color of the person's skin. The only thing that matters is what they've done, their character, their decency, their honor, or the lack thereof, and holding them accountable, rewarding them for their achievements, but holding them accountable when they violate the law. And that includes Barack Obama.
But a lot of people won't take it that way, Bishop.
Oh, I know that. But, you know, we've got to have a vision for our country that transcends race. And even though people are going to squawk about it, he's got to be held accountable the same way any other person would. And we need leaders who are going to say that over and over and over again. And no matter who you are, you're going to be held to the same standard.
It seems the nation is facing not only a political and cultural struggle right now, but also a moral crisis. So how should Christians, others, react to this disclosure and other ones that may be coming?
Well, I always say when you stand before God, is there going to be any racial test? When you stand before God, every person will give account for the deeds done in the body. We as Christians need to approach things the same way. Jesus said in Matthew 12:25, a kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation. If we love this country and believe it's a gift from God, we know that unity as one nation under God is the only way America is going to have a future. So we as Christians just have to stand fast and just deal with whatever fallout comes, but hold fast to our convictions.
And why do you think we see so much division even in our churches today, Bishop?
Because the devil is the author of division. I mean, he divided heaven, right? And he loves lies and falsehood and division and destruction. And so he is working everywhere he can, and that includes the church when they'll let him in. But we've got to stay focused on the word of God. You know, 2 Corinthians 5:16 says, henceforth know we no one according to the flesh. We do not even know Jesus according to the flesh, although we once knew him according to the flesh. That tells us that if anyone is in Christ, he's a new creation. That tells us we've got to refuse to look at people based upon their outward appearance or their ancestry and look at their character and their competence.
And you have a new project underway that started on July 4th. Tell us about Project 76 and the difference you're hoping that will make.
You know, the Lord revealed to me that there are 76 days between July 4th and September 17th, the Declaration of Independence, to the passing of the Constitution. And we're taking that 76 days and calling it 76 days of prayer for purpose and for prosperity for our nation and, of course, for our organization as an organization dedicated to trying to save America. And we're asking people to join with us to staying true to America's national destiny. What is America's national destiny? To be the greatest promoter of the gospel of Jesus Christ of any nation that's ever existed, and to give people more freedom, more hope, more opportunity than any other nation, precisely because we are a nation whose God is the Lord.
Prayer can change the nation. Okay. Bishop E.W. Jackson, President of Stand America, thank you for sharing your insights. God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you.
The Trump administration's attempts to modify recommendations for COVID vaccines and implement changes at the CDC have encountered a legal obstacle. 6 groups representing pediatricians, physicians, healthcare professionals, and pregnant women have filed a lawsuit against the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, and HHS Secretary RFK Jr. for taking unlawful and unilateral actions. Well, here to set us straight on the case, now before the U.S. District Court in Massachusetts, is Katie Talento. She's Executive Director of the Alliance of Healthcare Sharing Ministries. Katie, please remind our audience, what did Secretary Kennedy do that led to this lawsuit?
Well, first of all, he fired the entire advisory committee on immunization practices, which had led us so astray during the COVID pandemic, and replaced them with sane people from all different categories on the continuum of vaccine skepticism. And then he also recently, the FDA came out and said, hey, we're not going to recommend that the COVID vaccine be given to all healthy children and every 17-year-old boy and, 6-month-old babies. We're only going to recommend it be given to certain subpopulations that are highest risk health-wise. So this has got the medical establishment all in a tizzy, and for all the right reasons.
Well, the plaintiffs in this case are seeking an injunction against RFK's orders. So what would a stay from the court blocking the HHS change mean for parental rights?
Yeah, it really is a threat to parental rights because this advisory committee on immunization practices actually dictates what happens to children in schools across the country. 36 states defer explicitly in their statutes to this advisory committee or the CDC. And so to the extent that this advisory committee is allowed to continue using its anti-science dogma and ideology to drive vaccine policy, mandates on school children, violating their parental rights and their parents' judgments and medical decisions of their own healthcare providers chosen by the family, that is all out the window. And these parents have very little recourse in some states, and especially if they're not objecting or wanting a different schedule for their children because of religious reasons, they almost have no recourse in any state.
Well, here's what Secretary Kennedy and FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary said about the COVID vaccine order at the end of May.
I couldn't be more pleased to announce that as of today, the COVID vaccine for healthy children and healthy pregnant women has been removed from the CDC recommended immunization schedule.
There's no evidence healthy kids need it today, and most countries have stopped recommending it for children.
So, Katie, why the outrage over this? Is it about protecting children's health or money?
I think it's actually about money. You've landed right on it. So what happens is these pediatricians, they get paid by insurers at the end of the year a bonus based on how much of their population is fully adherent to the CDC schedule, meaning they can get hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes more than their salaries, in these bonuses if their entire patient population is vaccinated according to the schedule. That's why so many, almost all pediatricians and pediatric practices will fire you as a patient if you want to not comply fully or delay or have a different approach to vaccination. It's really driven by the money. And these are the same people who have shown over and over again not to have good scientific judgment. They created peanut allergy epidemic in the United States that no other country has because of their bad anti-science recommendations. These are the people, the American Academy of Pediatrics came out during the COVID pandemic and said, actually, lockdowns are terrible for kids, for school kids. And then they were pressured by Dr. Fauci and his ilk, and they retracted that. So, these are ideologues and they're anti-science and they're incompetent at best.
A lot of this is now coming out, and I know RFK Jr. has been labeled as anti-vax, and that's something he's denied repeatedly. However, there seems to be real fears here, Katie, that this could lead to many parents refusing to get their children other vaccines that are actually effective in preventing many childhood diseases. Your thoughts on that?
Well, we don't actually know if they're actually effective. If you look at something like the hepatitis B vaccine, which is given to every baby on the first day of life in the hospital, that was followed for 5 days before being approved by the FDA, that vaccine. We have absolutely no science around whether the entire childhood schedule contributes to or worsens health for children compared to not being vaccinated or a delayed schedule. That science has never been funded and it's never been done. So what we have is we have very short improper studies being done on one-off vaccines before they're approved. They're pushed out by this advisory committee and by the CDC, and parents are told that they're safe and effective, just like we were on the COVID vaccine. And we really don't know if that's true. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that it's not true. So I don't think being anti-vax in this day and age is actually anti-science.
Well, it's good to be skeptical, and I'm not a lawyer, but many people likely believe that RFK Jr. and President Trump have the legal authority and the right to make changes to executive branch departments and their orders. Do they not?
No, they absolutely do. The creation of this advisory committee and the people who are appointed to it and the vaccine schedule itself are not subject to the Administrative Procedures Act because they are not regulatory. These are executive decisions that can be implemented by the secretary or the president at will.
Okay. Like many other Trump administration orders, this one may likely go all the way to the Supreme Court. Katie Tolento, Executive Director of the Alliance of Healthcare Sharing Ministries. Thank you, Katie. Good talking to you again, and thank you for setting us straight today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
2 weeks of sectarian violence in Syria, along with Israel bombings to protect the Druze minority, suggest Syria is on the brink of a breakup. The promised national unity by interim President al-Shara remains elusive. Now he's turning to Turkey's President Erdogan for help. Al-Shara's HTS government has requested Turkish assistance to enhance his army's capabilities. However, Erdogan and Turkey are not the solution to Syria's division. They will not bring stability, only more division. Make no mistake about this, folks. Al-Shara came to power unelected thanks to Turkey. Erdogan aims for a unified Syria to exert control over its leader and government. He views Syria as Turkey light, another acquisition in his grand strategy to restore the Ottoman Empire and create a Turkish-led caliphate. However, minority groups, the Druze in the south, Kurds in the north, and Alawites along the coast, stand in his way. They reject Erdogan's influence and the leadership of his puppet president, al-Shara. Al-Shara claims he wants to restore unity to Syria, but this is unlikely to happen. The former al-Qaeda member and al-Nusra leader is actually sowing seeds of division. He and Erdogan seek a Syria free of minority influence, a Syria belonging exclusively to Sunni Muslims. A Druze activist reported that the recent sectarian violence between Druze and Bedouin militias, which resulted in at least 300 deaths, was caused by Syrian government forces supporting the Bedouins.
The truth is that the de facto authority is an exclusionary power and cannot execute. The promises it made to European countries and America are contradicted by what is happening on the ground.
Additionally, the committee investigating the slaughter of Alawites along the Syria coast last March has completed its inquiry. The committee did not hold government forces responsible, asserting that the murder of 1,400 people, many of whom were pro-Assad regime Alawites, was a result of sectarian motives, mostly based on revenge, not ideology. Folks, let's remember to pray for Syria. The people have endured great hardship from war and violence for more than 14 years. They need international assistance and divine intervention to end their suffering. Well, that's it today from the Global Lane. Until next time, be blessed.